What's up, everyone, and welcome to this latest edition of the Pinstriped Prospects Podcast, brought to you by Velocity 5 Sports Restaurant and Bar in Sterling, Virginia. I'm your host, Rob Terranova, and we've got another jam-packed episode for you this week. This is episode number 44 of the podcast. We'll be talking about Yankees spring training news and updates. As always, we'll discuss some hot stove rumors, and we've got some exciting changes coming to our website, pinstripeprospects.com. They're coming very soon, so stick around. You won't want to miss it. But before we get to all that, let me introduce our panel for this week. It is a little different. Joining us from Charleston, South Carolina, our River Dogs beat writer, Joseph Dixon. Hey, what's up? What's up, Joe? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. So far, so good. It's been warm here, so getting ready for some baseball, and it won't be too long now. So
Definitely some exciting stuff with baseball getting underway. And from down in Tampa, a man who knows the Yankee system inside and out, and now he knows how to pronounce Gleyber Torres' name, Paul Pagnato III. What's going on, Paul?
Hi, how you guys doing? I actually have had the opportunity to watch a couple games, hence the raccoon eyes. But it's been a lot of fun, and looking forward to this podcast.
The raccoon eyes is a good look for you. I'm not saying keep getting sunburned, but I'm just saying it's a good look for you. All right, guys, we have so much to get to, so let's just dive right in. The Yankees have played 5 spring training games so far. They are 5-0. A lot to get to. A lot of players overperforming, some injuries to talk about. But let's start here. Paul, we will start with you. Which Yankees prospects have stuck out to you the most so far?
So first and foremost, Tyler Wade. He hustles, very versatile. He's hitting the ball very hard. It seems like every at bat. Right now, he's my early favorite to win the second base job. I know that'll make Tommy Romanelli very happy. He said that last podcast. But the other two that really are forefront first come to mind are Cody Carroll. I got a chance to see him pitch last night. Touched 97 with his live fastball. Very impressive splitter. He throws around 84 miles an hour, and he finished off his repertoire with an above-average slider. Very, very impressed with him. Deception to right-handers with his delivery. Liked what I saw. And, of course, Miguel Andujar. Miguel Andujar had a double and 2 at-bats in Monday's game, a home run in the game on Tuesday, so back-to-back days with home runs. This guy can simply flat out rake. I applaud the rookie for his response when he told reporters during an interpreter after the game on Tuesday, it's not about sending a message. It's about doing your job, playing good, and helping your team. That's the way I see it. I'm just doing my job. You know, that was, of course, in reference to the Yankees' acquisition of Brandon Drury. Drury himself has looked pretty good. The other two names that I'd like to mention, the numbers really aren't there, but I've been very impressed with Billy McKinney so far. I've actually had a chance to see him now for several years. I've had a chance to follow this young kid's career. I was in Staten Island when he was with the Oakland A's, and he was playing for the Vermont Lake Monsters, and was really impressed with him. And he hit a 3-run homer on Sunday. He just runs out of the box hard, and I've really noticed he's been getting tons of playing time early on in spring training. And the last gentleman I'd like to mention is Kyle Higashioka. He's been absolutely great defensively and offensively, result-wise, in the early stages of spring training. With Austin Romine out of options, I think Higgy's probably ticketed for Scranton, but I think he's a name to watch out for. He's a great clubhouse guy, and I think a better overall catcher offensively and defensively than Romine, and I really do hope he wins the backup catcher's job.
That will be a competition to watch. Higgy, like you just said, definitely opening some eyes early on. But I have to tell you, Paul, I did get a text from Tommy while you were talking, and he's a little upset. He did say, Paul just stole my answer. Tommy, of course, can't be with us. He's working on something else at the moment. Again, something we'll get to a little later on in the podcast. But he did say that was his pick and that was his call, Tyler Wade, for the second base job. But, Paul, moving on a little bit here. You just talked about some of the prospects, some of the newer names. How about some of the big names? Joe, I want to bring you in here. Stanton hasn't quite really looked great so far at the plate. Judge hasn't gotten his first game yet. What are you expecting from these guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, with Stanton, he is off to a bit of a slow start, but a lot of it is it's going to be an adjustment period for him. So I'm not surprised he's off to a bit of a slow start. As long as he works out the kinks before the season starts, it won't be a big issue. Hopefully, it doesn't affect him too much also in the field because he's struggled at the plate and he's kind of been a little bit out of form in the outfield as well. But with that said, there's still plenty of time here in spring training, and obviously with Judge, he's going to be Judge. I think I don't think we're going to see much of a change with him. Obviously, the Yankees are going to take it slow with him. They're not going to force him along. They're not going to rush him, and his shoulder should be fine. So it'll be fun once he gets both of those guys get back in the lineup, like all Yankees fans have been waiting all winter for. So I can't wait for that to happen.
To add on top of what Joe said, I've had the opportunity to watch not only early work, but I've had to watch the practices, got the opportunity to watch the practices as well. And, Stanton, I hate to say it because it's so early, but he looks lost. He's had bad throws during infield, outfield. He's got a 0.00 batting average and a plethora of strikeouts. He's just a little behind everybody timing wise, but he'll be okay. It's February still. It's not even March. But Judge, as you mentioned, he has yet to make his debut. That will be hopefully as you guys are listening to the podcast on Wednesday. I have been incredibly impressed with Judge. I've been just very, very impressed with his work ethic and his batting practice. And, for me, I really think he's going to be the next great Yankees captain. He just goes about his business the right way and the Yankee way. And I just wanted to add that because, he takes batting practice seriously. He jogs on and off the field. And he's just one of the model citizens, if you will. And I just can't say enough about him.
Well, Paul, you talked about Stanton and looking lost at the plate, but we have seen throughout the years a lot of big names either traded or signed with the Yankees, and there's that kind of adjustment period to coming to New York and getting used to playing here and the expectations and the stage and the New York media. So my question to you, just to bring you back in here, is how much of a leash are you willing to give this guy, if any?
A pretty big leash. He's a former MVP and the current reigning MVP, multiple-time All-Star. He's going to be just fine. If anything, kind of shame on him for not reporting earlier, so he could have been ready, and his timing was a little bit better. But spring training's so long for hitters. It just takes them a couple weeks. It's really for the pitchers to stretch their arms out. So, he's a veteran. Even if he had a bad year, extending it into the year, I think he's going to be okay. I think the body of work and the talent that guy has is good enough to where even if he has a bad year in pinstripes, which very well could possibly be happening, any year, any player could. Judge could have a bad year, it just happens. But I'd give this guy some leash. I know there's a lot of hype around Stanton, Judge, and the big power bats, and expecting over 100 home runs combined. But it's one of those things where these players are both so comparable. I threw the Stanton comp on Judge when he was going through the system. However, I still don't think Judge is going to hit for as high as an average as he has, his rookie season. I think, Stanton's going to be the higher average batter. I think Judge can get on base at a similar, maybe more clip with his plate discipline. But they're both going to strike out a lot, and they're both going to hit a lot of home runs. So I think they're both going to be just fine.
And I just wanted to throw something in here myself, actually, because with Stanton last year, I believe he got off to a slow start last year. So it's not a shock that he's off to a slow start. And also, as far as Judge goes, he may be off. He may get off to a bit of a slower start this year due to the injury because he's going to be a couple of weeks behind. But I think he'll be fine once he gets up and rolling again.
And if he does get off to that slow start, which is very possible, he has been posting some pictures on Instagram with Odell Beckham Jr. So I can just see it now, the OBJ effect. So we'll see what happens. But Joe, staying with you here, Joe. So we talked about Stanton and Judge, but I'm curious to get your take. What prospects have stood out to you so far?
Well, I'm going to go with Estevan Florial. I love the kid. I covered him last year in Charleston. He's had a couple of triples, so he's kind of showing a little bit of flashes of what he can do out there. So he's been very impressive. Andujar, of course, he's jumped right off the page, and hopefully, I mean, with the way the Yankees do things, they tend to have an open competition for everything. So he's kind of, in my view, pulled ahead of in the competition for third base. So. It's early though, and we'll see how far we go. Also, it's important to note that a lot of the pitchers are still not in top form as well. So it's very, very early in spring training, and we'll know more in about a week or two, I would say.
There was a lot of talk throughout the offseason about two big holes, second and third base. Who are the Yankees going to bring in? Who's playing there? Obviously, the Machado rumors, Josh Harrison rumors everywhere. And it looks like two internal candidates, Tyler Wade and Miguel Andujar, are the front runners right now. They're really jumping off the page, like you said. But it's only 5 games into spring training, so we'll see. And no knock on Drury, the latest acquisition, but it makes you think about bringing in Espinoza and Jace Peterson, and maybe those guys, their services just won't be necessary this season. You can also fall back on the fact of another year of service. So I don't really see a scenario where either Torres or Andujar are starting the season with the big league club just to get that extra year of service. But Tommy, you touched on this. I called you Tommy. Sorry, Joe. Joe, you just touched on this about the pitchers, and obviously, Paul, like you said, this is about stretching out the pitcher's arms. But Joe, staying with you, what has stuck out for you so far with the pitchers, specifically? Some guys who struggled a little bit late last year, like Sonny Gray and Jordan Montgomery.
Well, both of those guys got off to a great start for their spring training. So I think that's an important, especially for someone like Sonny Gray. He kind of struggled down the stretch last year, so it's good to see him kind of bounce back, and hopefully he'll continue to do so. Again, he's got to get stretched out, and so does Jordan Montgomery. He's pitched well. It's a very small sample size so far, but with somebody like Montgomery as well, he knows he's going to be there the whole year now. So he has a lot to work for and a lot to work on. And I think he'll be more mentally and physically prepared for this season, knowing that he should be with the big league club the whole year. So I think it's an important spring for both those guys for different reasons, but so far so good on that front.
And Paul, you mentioned earlier about Cody Carroll. Anyone else add?
So I really like the way Gray and Monty threw the ball. Sessa even pitched very well on opening day. Gray really stood out to me because he was using his curveball a lot. Usually he goes slider. So he was getting good work with his curveball behind counts, early in counts, 0-0, and he was throwing fastballs for strikes. He looked really good. The results necessarily didn't show that he was dominant. He had a couple of hard hit balls, but it was his first outing. So I really liked what I've seen from that aspect. And then Montgomery, really liked what I saw from him. His changeup looked like it's kind of regained form. He lost that pitch towards the end of the year. And Sessa, his velo was good. He threw the ball well as well to kick off the season. So Ben Heller is leading the major leagues right now in strikeouts with 6. So he's got a lot of swing and miss stuff as well. So that's another eye to keep a name on for that last bullpen arm. Is it going to be Chase Shreve? Is it going to be Ben Heller? Is it going to be Jonathan Holder? Is it going to be Wade LeBlanc? We don't know. We don't know who's going to be there yet. It could possibly be Chance Adams. That's one of the minor leaguers that have flopped, but we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, so those guys have really thrown the ball well. Those are the ones that stick out. And Kale Kosho, Giovanni Gallegos, two guys that have pitched in the minor leagues, upper levels. Gallegos has pitched in the big leagues. He made his debut last year, and he's had the strikeout stuff working as well. Both have picked up. I think Gallegos picked up 2 saves, and Kosho picked up the save on the 27th. So those guys have been throwing the ball well. Everybody seems to be doing pretty good. You know, we're 5-0. We've had clutch hitting, and prospects are playing well, and we're finding a way to win ball games.
Paul, you just touched on this, so I want to elaborate on it. I know you said we'd get to it in a second, so let's get to it right now. We just talked about guys who have stuck out. What about guys who are underperforming or are just not getting the job done right now?
The 2 guys are 2 prospects, 2 pitching prospects, and both very well known and highly ranked. Chance Adams, very poor command of all his pitches. His changeup continues to concern me. He walked Dylan Cousins, who was the leadoff hitter yesterday on Monday when Chance entered the game in the 3rd, and everything snowballed from there. Cousins stole second base, got a ground out by Reese Hoskins, productive at bat. He grounded out to 1st. That moved Cousins to 3rd. Carlos Santana then hit a sac fly to put Philly up 1-0. Then he gave up a very hard hit line drive, single to left field by Cesar Hernandez, and then he walked Aaron Aether, and then Gary Sanchez ended up bailing him out by picking Cesar Hernandez off of second base on a nice play to end the inning. The other one for me is Justice Sheffield. He really looked like 2 different pitchers from the 3rd and 4th inning of Sunday's game. I will say I'll compliment him on his slider. It looked terrific. I actually saw a meme. It said NSFW slider porn, and it showed Justice Sheffield's slider, and it was just filthy. So, you know, he's got great stuff, and the velo was great in both innings, but the results and the command were polar opposites. In the 3rd, Sheffield struck out the first 2 batters he faced, and then got Pedro Florimon on a 4-3 ground out, and the next inning went as follows: a leadoff walk, a hit by pitch, a ground out, a sac fly, and then a 3-run home run by Michael Franco. Justice was then replaced by Wade LeBlanc, and that was the end of his day. I think his ERA is like 16.50 right now. Not really a good indicator of how
that
well
will improve. Yeah,
that will improve. You know, so don't really pay attention to spring training numbers. You know, that's an overreaction. Just focus more on movement of pitches, location of pitches. You know, the biggest thing for me is location of pitches, because that could mean stamina is good or poor. That could mean a guy's locked in versus, you know, a lot of times guys are working on stuff. Like Sonny Gray, he is not going to throw his curveball that often. He was working on that pitch, that outing, and, you know, that just, so be it. If he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit with it. You know, that's what he's working on. So it's just important as we talk to keep that in mind. But Sheffield, you know, going back to Sheff, he was recently quoted in saying, "I'm ready for the majors now." You know, he went out and sputtered.
Bold claim, yeah.
You know, he went out and sputtered. You know, he's going to be okay. I really like him. I like the fact that he worked quick. In my opinion, he worked a little too quick, and the game seems like it's too fast for him right now, and he kind of panicked. You know, that just can't happen. And you know, Sheffield kind of reminds me of kind of like a Clint Frazier was last year, where he really doesn't have that sense of reality, and you know, he's got the confidence, and it's borderline arrogance, and he's got to hone that in. So for me, I like him a lot. He's a great kid. I've had the opportunity to meet him when I was in Trenton last year, and I can't say enough good things about him. I believe in him. He's going to be great, but those 2 guys have sputtered.
Like you said, you like the confidence, but you're worried when it's bordering on arrogance, and that's something you don't want to see from a young player, especially not a top prospect that you're hoping can contribute to the big league club right away. Paul, I keep saying Paul, sorry. Joe, anything to add to what Paul just said?
Yeah, just a couple of things here. I mean, with Justice Sheffield, he looked great, as he said in his first inning work, and then he kind of sputtered out in the 4th. And I wonder if that's partly adrenaline as well, because these guys are finally getting out there and facing live competition. So it could be as simple as that. As far as Chance Adams, Again, it could be nerves. It could be, first outing nerves. There's still a long way to go. So even though, Paul made some great points about him and has valid concerns, he still has a long way to turn that around and hopefully, make a run at that last rotation spot.
Absolutely, and we have so much more to get to in this episode of the podcast, but first, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Attention cancer victims. If your loved one lived, worked, or visited Lower Manhattan in the months after the 9/11 attacks and have been diagnosed with cancer, federal benefits and health care may be available. Attorney Eddie Markowitz has helped many families recover substantial benefits from the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund. The James Zadroga Health and Compensation Act has been extended, but time is limited. Attorney Markowitz is proud to serve as counsel to the Zadroga family. Let him help you too. These benefits are not just for rescue workers, but to anyone who qualifies. The fund covers many cancers, including prostate, skin, lung, and breast. Please call 1-800-LAW-HELP. That's 1-800-LAW-HELP to see if you qualify. Joining the conversation once again now, we are talking spring training and the Yankees prospects and how they're doing and what we've seen from the team so far through the first 5 games. We talked about prospects who've stood out, prospects who've been flops so far. Obviously, we talked about Judge and Stanton. Moving on now to another prospect who we haven't really talked about yet, Clint Frazier. Clint Frazier seems to be a man on a mission this spring, talking about, I don't care about the depth chart. I don't care what the news says or what the roster says. I'm going to break with the team. And we just talked about liking confidence in a young player. You got to like this confidence. He's obviously worked really hard. He cut his hair. He grew up a little bit, you can tell, and he figured out he doesn't want to be a distraction. And I think it's pretty evident that he wants to be here. So 2 questions. Paul, I'm going to bring you back in. We'll start with you. 1, how impressed have you been with Clint Frazier so far? And 2, how serious is this news that he suffered a mild concussion?
So 2 things. First, with the concussion, I don't believe it's serious. It's a mild concussion. I expect him to be fully back in game condition this week. He's been going through concussion protocol, been working out. Part of it is getting your heart rate back up. So he's going to have a good workout tomorrow at George Steinbrenner Field with the medical staff and the trainers. So he's going to be just fine. As far as Frazier himself, I've been very, very impressed. He's tweaked his swing. He's reduced movement. His leg kick is not as high. It's more controlled. He creates a natural separation from his hands and his body, which is, he's focused on slowing down during the off season. He got rid of the hitch with his hands. He was lifting them up and cocking them back. That slows the bat down. He's got electric bat speed, and that kind of allowed him to get away with it, if you will. His batting practice is just absolutely fantastic. It's top 5 on the team. I was more impressed with Frazier's BP than Stanton's. With a couple other notes. As you mentioned, his hair is shorter. He's repeatedly said he's not going to let that be a distraction again, and he's acknowledged he wants to be less of a distraction. And he made a quote that I found very odd. He said, "I feel like I've gotten my swagger back." Clint, when did you lose it?
That's a good question.
Really had no shortage of swag before. I mean, that really threw me off. But I mean, to credit the guy's work ethic in all the workouts that I've seen, and going to the stadium early and watching batting practice and early work, he works very hard with AAA manager Bobby Mitchell before games during batting practice. He takes several probably 25 minutes, several reps on getting better jumps and routes to the ball. In my opinion, that's his biggest flaw in his game. It's not his bat. It's not his hair. It's not, anything other than taking bad routes to the ball. And you watch the video of that play. That was a very poor route to the ball, which ended up leading to him hitting his head on the scoreboard.
Right.
To his, credit again, he really wants it. He's willing to play center field. He's got the speed and the arm strength to do it. As I can't say enough, the biggest concern, which is concerning, which affects my opinion, is his roots. He's also said, my eyes are set on opening day. I'm here to win a spot. I'm sorry, Clint, but I think you're ticketed for Scranton.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that seems to be his fate, but anything can happen quickly in this game. Joe, let's bring you in. Joe, same question, but I want to add something else, which is, do you see his value rising within the organization as a future outfielder or as a really high commodity on the trade market?
That's a really tough question because right now it would seem like his path to New York is a bit roadblocked with all the glut of outfielders that they have. So I don't think his value has really dropped per se. So I think he's kind of where he was at the end of last year, and also with his attitude this year coming into spring training as opposed to say over the last couple of years where he's been a bit of a sideshow at times. I think a more mature approach would actually increase his value, quite honestly. As far as his game and such goes, he does need to improve in the outfield, that's for sure. But he does have the raw skills and talent to be out there. So he's definitely an interesting player to watch because he's got the ability to crack the infield. But again, with that Ellsbury contract kind of laying there, kind of chewing up not only a lot of the payroll, but also an outfield spot. It's going to be intriguing to see where Frazier ends up in the end, because I agree with Paul. He'll be in Scranton to start the year, unless somebody gets hurt or something along those lines. Because I mean, with Hicks, Judge, Stanton, Gardner, Ellsbury, I mean, there's just no room there for him right now.
Sure, let's stay with that train of thought and just expand on it a little bit. The question that's on every Yankee fan's mind is, what is Ellsbury still doing here?
Well, simple answer is money. He's got such a huge contract that, I mean, nobody really wants a part of it. Honestly, let's see here. I think we have let's see here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, he has $68 million left on his contract. So, with that type of money still owed to him, it's going to be hard for a team to take that on unless the Yankees pay a hefty amount of that. So that's basically the reason why he's around. Now, of course. We'll see with Ellsbury. If he can be healthy and can contribute, maybe he'll start earning some of that money back. So I'm not going to give up on him quite yet because he's shown in the past that he when he gets hot, he can be a valuable asset to the team. So even though he's been one of the more frustrating Yankees of recent times, he's going to be here most likely throughout the year. So may as well get behind him.
All right, Paul, I'm going to flip this back to you. Do you think what Ellsbury's doing right now is an audition for another team, or is he just projected to be the most expensive fifth outfielder in baseball?
I think he's going to be the most expensive fifth outfielder in baseball. But having said that, to answer your question, what is he still doing there? I agree with Joe. It's extremely hard to move $68 million. That's what it comes down to for me. But I really do think he will provide speed on the base pass. He will be more aggressive stealing bases. He'll be a valuable late inning pinch runner, late in games, and good insurance for Aaron Hicks and Brett Gardner. I actually think he will be a valuable asset this season.
Something that we all hope, trying to make the best of a tough situation here as far as the salary cap and the fact that there's also no room for him on the roster. I mean, I think if you ask anyone, anywhere, they would rather see Clint Frazier in that spot than Jacoby Ellsbury. So if he's the reason that Clint Frazier is being blocked, that's not something that's going to sit well with a lot of Yankee fans. But we do have to move on to something quickly. Just want to make an announcement for everyone regarding the exciting news that we talked about at the top of the show. There are some changes coming to the website, pinstripeprospects.com, and I just wanted to inform everybody that on Wednesday night at 7 p.m., the site will be down while it undergoes a bunch of changes and a refresh. And starting Thursday at midnight, so that's midnight, March 1st, brand new website will be launched, and it's very exciting. I know we've all been working really hard on this, especially our fearless leader, Mr. Robert Pimsner, has been not really sleeping to get this done. We have a state-of-the-art player database for every minor leaguer in the Yankee system. You'll have everything you need, one-stop shop. There'll also be some new refined search functionality. It's going to be a resource that you can't get anywhere else. So that's something I know that we're all really excited about. That's something that we've been working really hard towards. And it's also something that was required by you, the fans, you, the listeners. Thanks for your support. Another announcement that kind of goes hand in hand with that. For the second straight year, we broke a site record for a month, and there's still another day left, but for the month of February so far, we were over 568,000 page views. And that's huge for just essentially a Yankees blog that started 3 years ago. To have that kind of growth in this amount of time is remarkable, and it wouldn't have been possible without the fans and their support and the appetite and the craving for Yankees prospect information. So a huge thanks to the fans and to everyone who supported us, and of course to the man who started this, Mr. Robert Pinsner. A tip of the cap to him as well. And guys, I know you've all been working really hard too. I'm kind of the newbie here. You've been here for a while. Anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just throw this out here. I mean, the most exciting part that I think the fans will enjoy is once we get more and more video in, that will be a big part of the site moving forward. So once we all get out there and get out to the games and start getting some fresh video, I think the fans will really appreciate that point.
And the thing that I just wanted to add is just a thank you for everybody, to our sponsors, to all our writers, to our photographers. This is just an incredible thing we got going on here, and I'm just really happy to be a part of the journey. So thank you.
And this is just the beginning. This journey is nowhere close to over. We're just getting started here, and we will continue to grow and continue to push forward. So again, a huge thanks, and like I said, exciting changes coming on the horizon. So very excited about that. And coming back to the conversation, something a little bit more minor, but still Yankees news and Yankees prospect news. The Yankees traded Jabari Blash, who they acquired from the Padres in the Chase Headley deal, over to the Angels for some cash considerations. We just talked about the plethora of outfielders in this team. Any surprise by this move?
For me, not at all. Jabari was acquired from the Padres in the Chase Headley deal during the winter meetings back in December. Dealt back to the West Coast, this time to Los Angeles for cash considerations. He was obviously, like I said previously, with San Diego. This makes 11 current ex-Yankees that Angels general manager Billy Epler has brought over to Los Angeles. For those who don't know or can't recall, Epler was Brian Cashman's right-hand man for several years. To name those 11 players, staff members, you have Blake Parker, Juan Graterol, Jabari Blash, Chris Young, Vicente Campos, Brandon Pinder, Francisco Arcia, Chris Carter, Eric Young, Josh Paul, who was our catching coordinator, who is now their bench coach, and the newly retired Andrew Bailey. Announced his retirement on Monday. He will be the instant replay coordinator and major league coaching assistant. They had to make this move to open a slot on the 40-man roster for the newly acquired utility man, third baseman Brandon Drury. It's a move that just had to be made.
Joe, you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't think Jabari Blash really kind of fit in with the plans with the Yankees, and also, I mean, as far as the Angels kind of scooping up all these ex-Yankees, if they're gonna like emulate or take some influence from a system, I would think it would be the Yankees rather than say someone like the Marlins or someone along that line. So I get the strategy. It's kind of like establishing a culture out for the Angels, and again, Blash I don't think was going to be long for the Yankees. He was more a convenience piece than anything else. I didn't see him coming anywhere close to the roster with all those outfielders well above him.
I will say this, just to add a little bit to this topic. On a personal note, while I was at the winter meetings and this trade happened, I had the chance to talk to both of Blash's agents. Really nice guys. One of them from New York, really excited to be part of the Yankees. So I know this is kind of a letdown for him. Also, Blash is a behemoth. I think he's 6'3" and 205 or something like that. So I just had this image. I would have loved to have seen a picture of Blash, Judge, and Stanton in the outfield standing next to each other. It would have by far been the biggest outfield ever in baseball. So neither of those are going to happen, and we will move on. Obviously, some minor news, but still something to get to. As we switch over to something that's been grabbing headlines, especially on Twitter, but all around the baseball world, I think it's called the Rich Eisen rule. Rich Eisen proposed that in the ninth inning, the trailing team gets to send any three hitters that they want to the plate, regardless of batting order, or if they just hit, they can send their three best hitters in the ninth inning. And the argument here is that in basketball, in the fourth quarter, LeBron James gets the ball. In football, Tom Brady gets the ball. Your best players in the other sports get a chance to make an impact late. So why not have that be the same in baseball? Why not some consistency? I know when I first read it, I was like, this is incredible. And then the more that it sat with me, I was like, this isn't going to happen. It's just not realistic. So, Paul, why don't you come back in here? What do you think of the Rich Eisen rule?
Well, I'm going to be pretty blunt. Stick to football, Rich. This was the single most stupid idea that I've heard to date on how to fix the greatest game in the world. Simply ludicrous.
And I would completely agree with Paul. To me, it's trying to make baseball into other sports. Like, for example, with the NBA, for example, it seems like all you have to do is watch the last 5 minutes of the game to get the gist of it. Whereas baseball, it's always been a game of rhythm, a game of, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And also, to me, it's just ridiculous to be able to just bring in whoever you want in the ninth. I mean, why do the rules change? All of a sudden in the last half inning of the game, and how would you even fix the lineups after that? Let's say they only tie the game, then what happens in the 10th? I mean, do you go back to your normal lineup, and where does that start after you just put all your ringers in? So, to me, it's just ridiculous, and it's trying to fix something that really isn't broken. So, it's not going to go far, I don't think.
But don't you like the idea of the closers earning their check every time out? Every once in a while in the ninth inning, you get the bottom of the order, or you get some pinch hitter who's been sitting on the bench for 3 hours. Though, isn't it a nice idea to know that you're paying this closer what is now closer money, which is top dollar, and they'll have to earn their saves every night out? Isn't there something to be said about that, or am I just speaking out of thin air?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. To me, I mean, if you're bringing in guys in the ninth, I mean, the whole beauty of baseball is that sometimes the biggest outs come in the eighth and not the ninth.
Right.
So why punish the team that gets the outs in the eighth and then they have to face the same lineup again in the ninth? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me because I mean, you run a game to get a certain result, but then that can all be blown up if they can do whatever they want in the ninth. So to me, it would ruin the whole spirit of the game. I mean, you get only so many chances in baseball to make things happen, and if you don't make the most of those chances, then you're done. So I mean, it's kind of like life.
And there is also the excitement of the bottom of the order making a difference, impacting the game, making a difference in the game, being the difference in the game, winning a game in the ninth inning. You see that 8-9 hitter get on base, flip it back to the top of the order. That's part of the fun of the game. Paul, I feel like you're itching to get back on here. What do you want to say?
With what you just said, bottom of the order, bringing things back in the game, as Yankee fans all over, you gotta, who comes to mind? The first guy that better come to mind is Scott Brocious. Man, that guy was the 9-hole hitter.
Wow.
And look what he did in the World Series against the Padres. I mean, geez, the idea is stupid.
Okay. We're going to shift now to talk about the Yankees and something else that's been widely discussed and debated, which is what should this team's nickname be? There's been a lot of talk about Murderers Row 2.0, and since they acquired Brandon Jury, Judge and Jury, which I think is kind of terrible. but it's been tossed around and social media's had a field day with it. So the New York Post had a contest for people to send in their ideas for nicknames, and they narrowed it down to 4 finalists. And there's a poll right now to see what it should be. I think 3 of the 4 are pretty good. I think one of them's terrible. But I just want to throw these out there for anyone who hasn't seen the poll. It's Judge and Drury. No, Judge, yes. Legion of Boone, like Aaron Boone. Mount Crushmore. And this one's my favorite, Slam Central Station, which is pretty great. So, Joe, I want to start with you. What do you think of the 4 finalists? Do you have a favorite, and is there one not listed there that you would like to see this team adopt?
Well, I really don't love any of these, quite honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm not a big, nickname person anyway. So, I mean, I agree with you. Slam Central Station would be the best of those. The other like Drudge and Drury, we don't know what type of contribution Drury's going to make. So that's kind of putting a lot of pressure on a guy who, I mean, he'll most likely make the team, but I don't know how big of a impact player he'll be. So that one doesn't make much sense to me. Legion of Boone is okay. I mean, it's not great. It's not horrible. Mount Crushmore, I mean, that's okay. I mean, none of these really jump out to me, but then again, I really don't have a better answer either. So, for me, I mean, if I had to pick one of the 4, it'd be easy for me to say, Slam Central Station. So that's the one I would go with.
All right, and just have to make a correction. The poll didn't have Judge and Jury. The poll had Judge and Fury. And the thinking was that Judge would bat second, and everyone behind Judge is the Fury. So Judge and Fury. Paul,
I still don't love it.
Paul, what do you think?
So the Judge and Fury, it's okay. If it was Judge and Drury, I agree with Joe. Let's see Drury before we all get too excited and start making those nicknames. Legion of Boone, I really, just like that because Russell Wilson is a Yankee, and it's similar to the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Doom, or Legion of Boom. Sorry, seriously, how much I know football. Mount Crushmore, I mean, are we the Washington Nationals? It's great if you got a political affiliation, but I mean, I'm out. And Slam Central Station, that's my number 1. It's got a New York affiliation and it flows. So I think we can all agree on Slam Central Station.
I think so too. My personal favorite, not listed, and I actually did send this over to the Post when they were doing this contest, the Bat Pack. I have to give a nod to Tommy Romanelli, who, again, is not with us for this episode, but I know he's watching, and I know that he's still annoyed with you about the Tyler Wade comment. But the Bat Pack is my favorite one. I think it's cool. I think it's a throwback. It's very New York. I'm sticking with the Bat Pack. But while we're talking about football, Paul, I know you had a chance to see Russell Wilson in his first spring training appearance. What was your impression of what a lot of people think is just a publicity stunt?
He can actually hit the ball pretty far. He hit 6 home runs. He was in the same batting practice group as Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez, and Greg Bird. He hit 1 more homer out than Gary Sanchez did. So I actually saw him play in college. I went to East Carolina, was with the East Carolina baseball team, and the Pirates played his North Carolina State Wolfpack and got a chance to see him there. And, he's just an athletic guy. He's got speed, clearly, and he's got quick hands. And if he really wanted to play baseball, I mean, I think he'd be better than Tim Tebow, to be honest. And that's not taking a shot at Tebow. That's just saying what I think of Russell Wilson.
Okay. Well, it will be a fun week to see him at spring training. I know we're going to be down there. I think we're just going to miss him, but we will be giving you updates on how he performs and how the rest of the Yankee prospects perform at spring training. But that is going to do it for this 44th edition of the Pinstriped Prospects Podcast. Of course, brought to you by Velocity 5 Sports Restaurant and Bar in Sterling, Virginia. Don't forget, if you have anything you would like to hear discussed on this podcast, feel free to reach out to us at any time. You can contact our managing partner and executive producer of this podcast, Robert Pimsner, can be reached at rob@pinstripeprospects.com, or feel free to reach out to me directly. You can find me at rterranova@pinstripeprospects.com. Also, don't forget to follow us all over social media. You can find Pinstripe Prospects on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we ask that you please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and the Google Play Store. And if you feel inclined to do so, and we really believe that you do, please give us that ever-important 5-star rating. That is really important for a podcast like ours. It makes it easier to search, easier to find, more accessible to everyone else looking for something like this. So please subscribe and give us that 5-star rating. And don't forget, cannot stress this enough, March 1st at midnight. Again, March 1st at midnight, brand new pinstripeprospects.com coming your way. It's state-of-the-art. It's everything you need. It's a one-stop shop. You'll forget about all these other wannabe minor league blogs or websites or whatever they call themselves. It is going to be Pinstripe Prospects already is the best, and the best is about to get better. So don't forget, Wednesday at 7 p.m. the site's going to go down, and then at midnight, March 1st, the new website will be up and running. So we look forward to that, and we hope you do as well. But for Joseph Dixon, Paul Pagnato III, and our man behind the camera for the podcast, Mr. Robert Pimsner, I'm Rob Terranova. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Pinstripe Prospects Podcast, and we look forward to checking in with you again next week. Until then, we are gone. We're out of here.